have some questions for you. Hey, brave girl, how you do the things that you do?
Hey Brave family, it's Robyn Warner, and I'm so excited to be here today. My life has been made up of so many small and insignificant stories, but also some big impactful ones that have made me who I am today, and I'm excited to share those with you. So if you haven't followed along or you don't know who I am, I'm Robyn. I am a young mom from Utah. I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I love business. I've started and sold several businesses, but my main priority is raising my 4 rambunctious kids. When I'm not burning casseroles or changing poopy diapers, I love to have fun and smile. But there's been a part of my life that wasn't always happy, and it was kind of scary. And that happened on February 27th, 2008. I was a young college girl dancing for my university here in Utah. I was doing so well in school, and I went on a run on a nice warm day in one of the safest towns in Utah. That run ended up being one of the most pivotal moments of my life, as well as one of the most traumatic experiences. Now, running alone is something you've probably done before, or maybe you haven't, but this was actually my very first time. I came from a very safety-conscious home. I had never run alone. I always locked my doors, and I was really aware of my surroundings. But I had just moved out to college. I was 18 years old. I was so excited that I was going to be free, living on my own, and I could make my own choices. I asked my roommate if she'd come running with me. She said, sure, meet me home at noon. We got home from school, noon came around, and she ended up not being able to run with me. And for a split second, I thought, ugh, I probably shouldn't go running alone. But then I was like, you know what? I am 18, I am mature, I am safe. It's in Utah, middle of the day, I'm gonna be just fine. So I got ready that day and I started heading out to the trail, and this was a public paved trail. This was a place I had been numerous times. I felt safe. There was people outside. Again, it's noon, 90 degrees outside. There was plenty of people on the trail. And I started running and I realized I had forgotten my cell phone. And I was like, ooh, shoot, I should probably go home and get it. But I decided I had already started, I was gonna keep running. So I kept running, and again, the feeling came, go home and get your cell phone. I ignored it. I kept running, again, go home and get your cell phone. I didn't listen. And as if a ton of bricks just hit me, go home and get your cell phone. So I stopped. Wasn't sure at the time that it was my intuition or the spirit or whatever you like to call it. I turned around, went home and got my cell phone. And I thought at the time, maybe this boy that I was dating was trying to get a hold of me. The cute boy had texted me and I was like, oh, that's why. And I actually almost didn't go back to the trail because I had already been, 45 minutes at this point. But I thought, you know what? My dance teacher at the college has certain miles we have to run. I better get them done today. So I headed back out on the trail. When I got there the second time, I did not feel the same. I felt nervous, anxious, and I kept having this bad feeling that something was going to happen to me. But again, your logic will talk you out of it, right? So I'm looking around, I'm safe, there's people on the trail, middle of the day, safe Utah, but my intuition is like, this is not a good place right now. Something's gonna happen to you. You need to be prepared. So I kept having this really distinct thought, and it's super random, that a bunch of wild horses were gonna come down and trample me. And I know you're like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, the week before I was there with my roommates and a bunch of wild horses had come down. And I thought to myself, Robyn, what would you do if a wild horse came down? And I was like, well, I would do this or do that. I just had this anxious feeling that something bad was gonna happen. As I was running, I came around the corner and this thing came really quick around the corner and I thought it was a horse. So I jumped into the bushes and I'm like laying down, hiding in the bushes, and it was just a kid on the longboard. And he got off his longboard and he came over and he's like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like in the twigs and I'm like, yeah, I'm just laying in these bushes right here. And I like get up, I'm so embarrassed, and he's like, what's your name? We exchanged names. His name was Casey, I was Robyn. He looked at me again, he's like, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, yeah, man, I always lay in bushes, that's totally normal. And I watched him get in his car and drive away, and I was so embarrassed. I was like saying, Robyn, pull yourself together, why are you so anxious? You're always paranoid, you're gonna be just fine. So I kept running up the trail. And I had been running for about another mile, and I came around the corner and I saw this man walking down the trail, and instantly my heart just dropped and I was like, oh, something's off with this guy, because it was hot outside and he was wearing a beanie, a big backpack, a hoodie, cargo pants, cargo boots, and I was like, he's not dressed for the weather or the attire. So I kind of noticed him and I had a really bad feeling. And as we kept getting closer, I was keeping my eye on him, and I was going up the trail, he was going down. And as I passed him, I looked over at him and my heart just dropped. And they say you can see a man's soul through his eyes. I immediately knew something bad was going to happen. So I pulled out my earphones, turned back around to see what he was doing, and he had casually flipped around and was now walking up the trail. And I'm running, so I'm further ahead, and I'm, oh my gosh, is he chasing me? So I turn back again, see what he's doing, and he's starting to jog. And my heart is racing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's chasing me. But then logic is like, or he's running on this running trail. Like, there's literally people just around the corner. You just saw them. So I start running a little faster, turn around, and I realize he's running after me, or so I think. And I come around the corner on a trail, and it just ends. It's the end of the trail, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I flip around, and to the right, it drops off into the river between the main highway and the trail I'm on. Again, it's a paved trail. I can see cars. They can see me. And to the left, there's just bushes and wilderness. And I'm like, well, I can't go either way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around. I'm going to run as fast as I can back down the trail. And I'm just going to hope that I freaked myself out. I'm going to run right past him and nothing's going to happen. So I get ready to run, and I look up, and he's got one foot on each side of the trail with his hands in his pockets, and he's just laughing at me. And I'm like trying not to make eye contact. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? Like, I'm so confused. My intuition is telling me this man's going to hurt you, but my logic is like trying to talk me out of it. So I get ready to run, and I have a feeling to call 911. And I'm like, I'm not calling 911. My mom's taught me never to call 911 unless your arm's like broken or you're bleeding to death. But I had a feeling to call 911, so I pressed it into my phone, and I pressed send. And I ran as fast as I could. I didn't even see if it called. And as I ran right past him, for a split second, he let me get just behind him out of my peripheral vision that I thought that I had cleared him, and I almost had a sigh of relief. And then all of a sudden, he grabbed me by the neck and just clotheslined me to the floor. And I smacked the floor, and I remember being completely in shock. My phone flew out, and I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't believe this was happening. And we learn about fight or flight, but we don't always learn about there's a third option, freeze. And I completely froze. I couldn't scream. I couldn't yell. I couldn't move. I was totally locked up. And I don't know how long I froze. It could have been a minute, could have been 20 seconds, could have been a millisecond. I'm not sure, but I know that eventually I unfroze. And there was a couple things that I did that actually saved my life that day. Because when I was 12, I had the most basic self-defense conversation. It wasn't even a class. It was a 5-minute conversation about what you should do if you're attacked. And I remember this lady was teaching me in a church activity, and I looked at my friend and I was like, this will never happen to us. And all of a sudden, a few short years later, her voice comes into my head, and she says, yell your name and your location. So I immediately started screaming, Robyn Williams, Canyon Trail, I'm being raped. Robyn Williams, Canyon Trail. I don't know if anyone can hear me, but I know that there's people not too far down the trail, and I know that I thought that I've called 911. So I'm yelling these words. He picks me up, and he starts taking me through the woods. And her voice comes into my head again and says, never leave the location you're attacked. So I kicked and arched and spit and threw dirt in his eyes. And I was just picture a big, massive fish. I was just flopping around so he couldn't take me too far off the trail. And he wasn't successful in taking me through the woods. We only got about 10 feet off the trail. And we struggled. I tried so hard to get away. And that's why I teach self-defense. And what I teach in self-defense is that getting away and fighting back are two different things. I was not successful, and I was getting beat up and bruised and hurt. And he kept trying to get into his backpack. And he would like hold me down with one hand and try to get into his backpack with another. And I remember thinking, whatever's in his backpack is not good, because he's making it a point to try to get in there. So I would kick it or throw it or push it or do whatever I could. So he couldn't get into it. And we struggled for a long time. He sexually assaulted me, and I remember he was laying on top of me, and he had one hand strangling me, and I started losing consciousness, and the other hand, he was able to get into his bag. And he pulled out a knife, and he held it, pressed it into my throat, like he was trying to slit my throat, and I grabbed both my hands, and I was just pleading with him, please, please don't kill me, and I was pushing my hands against him, and I said a quick prayer, and I said, Heavenly Father, please help me. I don't know what to do. And instantly, I felt that he had shifted weight on my body, and I was told to go for his groin. And as an 18-year-old girl who had never seen a groin or touched a groin, I was like, no. But that's what the Spirit told me to do. So I went for it. I don't know what I did, grabbed, twist, or pulled. I just went for it. He let go of my throat. I was able to sit up, and I was told to go for his eye, and I stuck my finger straight into his eye and gouged as hard as I could. He hit the floor. I was jumped up and knew this was my last chance to run. So I turned around to run, and he grabbed my arm, and I knew I had no more strength. So I turned around, and I caught two of my fingers in his mouth, and I fish hooked his mouth. And that's actually what had him hit the floor. He hit the floor, and I ran as fast as I could, completely banged up, bruised, completely injured. I'm running as fast as I can back down the trail. And I get about a mile down the trail, and I see Casey, the longboarder. And this was an hour later. And Casey kind of looked big and scary. He was this big, muscly guy. And I was like, there's two of them. Like, I saw Casey get in his car and leave. He's here to hurt me. This is a team job. And so I'm starting to panic, and he's saying, whoa, 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 Robyn, stop. What in the heck? What the heck happened? And I'm like, I don't trust you. So I was backing up, and I said, if you're here to help me, throw me your cell phone. So he threw me his cell phone. I called 911 again, and they actually had heard everything. But it was a long trail that went from the inner city all the way up to the canyon, and they were actually on their way. They got there 5 minutes after. So I met up with the policemen, went to the hospital, and Casey, the Good Samaritan, was able to help the policemen find my attacker, who at that point was hiding in some mountains, and they were able to get him into custody, and he is now serving a 15-year to life sentence. He gave a full confession that he was going to rape me. He was going to keep me as a sex slave for 9 to 10 months, and then he was going to kill me and bury my body in a specific spot. It was very premeditated. He told the judge in detail that in his bag he had these shoelaces he was going to use. He tied up a whole string of shoelaces to use as a noose for me. He had masks in his bag. It was a terrifying experience as an 18-year-old girl. And after that, it just catapulted me into self-defense. So I wanted to learn everything about self-defense, how I could empower myself and how I could help others that they didn't experience the same thing. And so for the last 13 years, I have been teaching self-defense, and it has been my mission to help women and girls feel prepared and not scared. So when I'm not burning casseroles or raising my little babies or talking about all things fun here on the Brave Talk Show, I am guiding women through my course called SAFE by Robyn, and SAFE stands for Self-Defense, Awareness, Fighting Techniques, and Empowerment. And I've had the opportunity to speak to thousands of women and have thousands go through my course. And it's been really, really healing for me to move forward from such a traumatic experience, because I get to share and I get to empower others, which then empowers me to continue to heal. And so I'm very grateful for the experience. Obviously, that moment in my life is a huge part of my story. It's, you know, something that has made me who I am as a woman. It's my whole life's mission and passion is to help other women be prepared and safe. And so it's crazy that just, you know, one decision to go running has actually completely made me who I am. And I get people ask a lot, would you ever, you know, take that experience away? Or I get asked specifically, did the Spirit ever tell you not to go to the trail? And that's really interesting, because I had a lot of intuition promptings, very specifically, but never once did it tell me not to go to the trail. And even when I left and got my phone, it never told me not to go back. So I feel like this was meant for me. This experience was something that I needed to experience, and I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be alive, and I'm grateful that I can teach and prepare other women. So that is my story. I'm so grateful that I could share it with you guys, and I'm so grateful that you guys are here and for all your love and support on the Brave Talk Show. I hope that you stop by every week and you feel enlightened and brave. Thanks, guys.
Have some questions for